Okay, let's just step right into the suffocating, intense heat of March 2001. Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're looking at a truly defining moment in sports history. I mean, we are talking about a moment when an unstoppable empire collided head-on with an immovable wall. This isn't just a story about a game, you know? It's a deep dive into the psychology of breaking points and human endurance. Let's see exactly how a seemingly invincible force was brought to a dead halt.
There's this quote, "There are matches that enter the record books, and then there are battles that enter mythology." And honestly, that hits the nail on the head. When we look at the historical accounts of what happened at Eden Gardens, it completely transcends your standard win or loss column. We are dealing with massive cinematic stakes here. This is a story of absolute conquest meeting pure, unfiltered desperation. But to really understand why this event is still so analyzed and revered today, we've got to grasp the terrifying scale of the adversary that arrived on the pitch.
So let's move right into Act 1, an unstoppable empire. 15. That is the number you really need to keep in mind here. The Australian cricket team didn't just arrive at Eden Gardens in Kolkata as defending champions, they rolled in like absolute conquerors. They were riding this insane world record streak of 15 consecutive test victories. Just think about what that does to the psychology of an opponent for a second. They didn't just beat teams, they broke them. They stepped out onto that dusty pitch with this intimidating armor-like confidence. When you're facing a machine that has dismantled its last 15 opponents with ruthless efficiency, the pressure is incredibly suffocating. And you know what the immediate result of facing a machine like that is? A massive, crushing 274-run deficit for India after just 3 days of play. The Australian team had done what they literally always do. They pushed their opponents straight to the brink. If you can just picture that stadium for a moment, a massive, hazy, packed arena in Kolkata. The scoreboard was just glowing faintly in the background with this crushing number. The shadows were lengthening on the grass, and the Indian team appeared completely, utterly defeated. It wasn't just a physical deficit, it was a total psychological collapse. So, trailing by 274 runs, India was forced to follow on. And to put that into perspective, if you look at the historical data, the bleakness of the situation cannot be overstated. No team had won a test match after being forced to follow on in exactly 20 years. 2 whole decades. History was literally written on the wall. The tens of thousands of fans in the crowd were reduced to absolute stunned silence. For all intents and purposes, the series felt entirely, irreversibly over. The Australian Empire had won again. Which brings us to Act 2, Forged in Desperation. But here's the thing about legends, as the source material points out, they aren't born in these comfortable, easy victories. They're forged in absolute, pure desperation. 2 men walked out to the crease to face what looked like certain humiliation. VVS Laxman and Rahul Dravid. They were facing the most lethal bowling attack on the planet, but they did it with entirely different, yet perfectly complementary methods. You had Laxman carving boundaries like a brilliant artist, paired with Dravid, who was just absorbing the incredible damage like a gladiator in an arena. They were standing back-to-back in a metaphorical and almost literal dust storm. And guys, they didn't just survive for a couple of hours. The elements of this 104-over stand were just absolutely brutal. First off, you have the blistering, suffocating heat. Second, total physical exhaustion. I mean, imagine the sweat pouring down through a helmet grill hour after hour after hour. And third, relentless psychological warfare. The Australian bowlers threw everything they had in their arsenal at them. Blinding pace, sharp spin, pure aggression. But against all of that, for an entire day, the wall held. They batted for an astonishing 104 overs. It was a marathon of defiance that literally nobody saw coming. All right, let's dive into Act 3, Shattering the Illusion. So when the chaos finally paused, the numbers on the board represented the absolute shattering of an illusion. VVS Laxman had scored 281 runs. Rahul Dravid, 180 runs. These 2 men didn't just save a cricket match. By putting up these monumental, staggering scores against an attack that previously seemed completely untouchable, they took the Empire's greatest weapon, its psychological dominance, and just broke it right in half. And this monumental stand paved the way for a miraculous final figure, 171. On the final day of the match, the momentum had completely, totally inverted. Capitalizing on the incredible foundation laid by Laxman and Dravid, Harbhajan Singh stepped up and absolutely tore through the Australian lineup. This culminated in a stunning 171-run victory for India, a team that was trailing by 274 runs, forced to follow on, and totally written off by history itself, turned around and won by a massive 171 runs. The stadium, which was previously silent, erupted into pure chaos with tens of thousands of fans waving flags in the golden dusk. So, what does this all mean? Why does this matter to us today? Well, first, this was the day the underdogs simply refused to bow down to an overwhelmingly superior force. They proved that no matter how dominant the opponent or how bleak the historical statistics look, human grit can rewrite the script. And second, Eden Gardens became a fortress. It transformed from a place of looming defeat into this impenetrable symbol of resilience. I want to leave you with a bit of a provocative thought to chew on. Will desperation always be the ultimate catalyst for breaking an unstoppable empire? It's a question that applies not just to sports history, but to any arena where we face overwhelming odds. Think about how that relates to the challenges you see in the world today. I hope this deep dive gave you a totally new perspective on what happens when an unstoppable force finally meets its match. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and until next time, keep your guard up.